Welcome everybody, this is David Gamble. He is, I'm just gonna hype you up at this point. You are an esteemed journalist.
Oh
yes.
God.
You went to law school and now you are a comedian, but were you a comedian before law school?
I was not, no. Ironically, I did not have the confidence to be a comedian before law school. I thought I was funny, but I didn't have the confidence to stand up in front of people and talk all the time.
Where did the confidence come from?
Lawyer.
I think it was from going to law school.
Yes.
Yeah, in law school, basically, they sort of they drill into you how to present and how to seem confident in front of people, even if you're not. And so I got used to talking like I was very confident. Like you make very bold statements out front, and then which is very similar to comedy. You make a bold statement up top, then you give your 3 or 4 reasons for why that statement is true, and then you do a little button on the end. And so that format, I was like, okay, I can fool people into thinking I'm confident. And I think I'm funny, and so I put those two together, and it's worked out so far.
Right, translated into real confidence.
Yes, yeah. Well, let's not go too far.
Well, I was going to ask you, so you are also a part of, with your comedy and everything, you're doing fundraisers, you're giving back to the community.
Yeah.
And, you even do that during your law school sessions or even, in your own practice. So that's really inspiring.
Yeah. We I guess just because being a stand-up comedian kind of feels like all of us comedians agree that it's an art form, but it's like the lowest art form. Like we're basically like clowns. And so sometimes you're just like, well, what can I do with this? Because it's very personality driven. And for instance, with the Los Angeles fires recently, one of my friends who has family down in Los Angeles, who is a stand-up comedian, said, hey, we could put a show together and raise money for that. And so it's that way to not feel useless, basically, in a situation. Like, I can do something. I have this skill of making people laugh sometimes, and I think that we can probably do something good. So, to that end, on January 25th at Reno Public Market at 7:30 p.m., we will be having a fundraiser show for Los Angeles.
That'll be really great. We all know about those people. It's really devastating, but those people really do need any help that they can get. It's all over the city.
Yeah, it's insane.
Really insane.
I don't know if you've seen the satellite photos, but it looks like a war zone where you're just like, it looks like it got bombed out. So quite devastating. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that besides your comedy and besides giving back to the community, you're also a big brother.
Yeah, yes, I am.
I did not know that.
You did? Oh, yes. See?
Being the journalist.
Yeah, exactly. You've done your homework.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am, I worked with Big Brothers and Big Sisters. They call it a big and a little.
Oh.
My little actually aged out. So when he turned 18, your big little relationship is officially over. But his birthday was just a couple days ago. He's 21 now. He just turned 21, so I was texting him this isn't real, is it? And it's kind of funny because I remember this feeling. He's like, yes, I'm so old. it's like you have all the time in the world. But yeah, it's basically a platform through which to mentor children who might need that. I started with him when he was in middle school. So I would show up at his middle school at lunchtime and we would just read books or play games together. And then once he got into high school, we started going off-site. So we started we would go drive golf carts or go-karts or go golfing, play a lot of video games. And the reason to do that ultimately is that outcomes for those children are vastly improved by having a consistent person in their life over a period of years. And so those who go through that program are more likely to go to college if that's what they would like to do. Also, it just stabilizes you. A lot of I can think of a couple of the littles who didn't go to school after high school, but went right into business. One went into real estate. One became a chef. And so what you hope to do is just give your time to another human being. And the real thing is that hopefully has a ripple effect across time. So
do you still do that?
No, I do not have another little anymore. So it's funny because I started doing that when I already had 2 kids.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's get a third in here. And I found that the 3 kids is a lot of kids. So even being a part-time to one, I was like, this is a lot. But I still hang out with Lawrence, who was my little. We still have lunch together.
Oh, great.
We talk about his...
Is that illegal?
I think we're consenting adults, okay? This is good. That sounds weird. But no. Can we cut that out?
Don't look at me. He's editing it.
No, but I still do talk to Lawrence, and that's sort of the hope, is that the relationship continues beyond beyond your
Oh, good.
big little relationship.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So I highly recommend it to anyone who might have the time and inclination.
I once was 22, maybe 23, and I was looking into how I can be a part of the community here in Reno a little better. It was before I found Take Two or anything.
There you go.
I looked into the Big Brother program, and I
Yeah.
was gonna be a Big Brother.
Oh.
I didn't make it past the finger printing stage.
They found your felony background.
They did?
Yeah, that's that's tough. You know,
Yeah.
you gotta get fake fingerprints. That's how I did it.
Okay, gotcha.
Just for the record, Nomar is one of the nicest people that I know. I can't imagine him jailbreaking right now, but we'll see.
We'll talk more about that.
My
off camera.
criminal
Yeah.
background includes a lot of traffic violations.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get into that in the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'd love to know. But also, what made you want to go to law school? Because I was also crazy once, and
Yeah.
I wanted to do that.
Wow.
And I just, I found another path because there's nothing wrong with it. But
Yeah.
I wish I maybe went through with it. So tell me about how that.
It's very
Inspired.
interesting. So I grew up, my father worked for a nonprofit here in Reno growing up. And the job of that nonprofit organization was to train judges on how to better handle child abuse and family cases. And so I grew up being around judges and lawyers a lot. And it just kind of is one of those things that's always in the back of your mind. You're like, maybe I could do that because it's so in the zeitgeist. There's all these lawyer TV shows and you're like, oh, lawyers are cool. They get to dress cool and they get to they get to go make these grand speeches. And then also, truly the reason why I went to law school at the time I did was because I wanted to be an agent for actors in Los Angeles.
What?
Yeah. So
like an entertainment lawyer.
Yeah.
I wanted to do that for athletes. For
Yeah.
professional athletes.
yeah, it's kind of cool. And so that was the thing is that my plan was to what you do is at the bigger agencies you have either an MBA or a JD. And then you go to the agency and they stick you in the mailroom. And then you work your way up to agent over 5 years. And I actually did. I went to William Morris, which at the time had just become William Morris Endeavor, I think. And they said, yeah, we can put you in the mailroom for $11 an hour. And that was in Los Angeles right after law school. So I was like, no, that's not going to work for me.
Acting was always in your world? It was always on the radar?
Sort of. I think I was always sort of. I was kind of a creative kid. I liked to write a lot, but I was shy, so I didn't like the performance piece.
Okay.
And so in high school, I would say I wanted to be a writer director, like Spielberg. Spielberg was like the holy grail of writer directors for me. And then I think that law school is so practical. That was sort of the thing. Is that it was kind of like, well, if I don't make it in the arts, I have this law degree. And that's a way to make money and it gets respect. And ultimately, the longest thing I did as a lawyer was I was a public defender for 7 years. And so, and that was very fulfilling actually to represent indigent clients, people who can't afford attorneys otherwise. It was very, very interesting to get to know those individuals and to sort of try to shepherd them through the justice system. For me, I'm a very sensitive person, emotionally, and somewhat of an anxious person. And so eventually that sort of law in that form was a lot of giving and getting bad news sometimes. And I think that sort of came to wear on me. And so I want to basically connect with people and be happy and make people laugh. And so law wore me down ultimately, but anybody who asks me now if they should go to law school, I kind of just try to, you'll meet a lot of lawyers who will say, no, don't do it. I just kind of try to inform them of know what you're getting into and know why you're doing it. And I think the most useful thing that I learned in law school was they taught you how to think. And it wasn't not what to think, but how to go about breaking down an idea or a problem, making sure that you know that you have the accurate information to back up what you're saying, and then how to present copious amounts of information in a very cogent and coherent way for a judge, for a lawyer, another lawyer, or for a lay audience. And so even now, the skills of analysis that I got in law school, I love that, and I love being able to think the way that I can now. And so, I'm not in practice anymore, but I retain the skills, and I'm glad I did it.
I'm about to do 180, but does it help you in comedy?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So because it is very similar to comedy, as I said, in that.
Law and being a lawyer is similar to being a stand-up comedian.
Well, so what comedians
They're
do?
both hilarious now.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Jokes were not welcome in the courtroom, I'll tell you that. One time I tried to make a joke in a courtroom. I walked in with my client, and my client's this very shy young woman, and she sits down, and the judge is like, "You can sit anywhere you want, ma'am. We're not here to judge you." And I looked at the judge and I said, "Except for you, Your Honor." And then she just like looked at me and was like, "What?" "Oh, no. I meant judge in the sense of pass judgment, not judge in the sense of
Did not get it.
No, it's very literal." And so like it was just like, okay, don't make jokes in this room. That's fine. That's fine. But stand-up comedians, so for example, Bill Burr. Bill Burr has a lot of controversial takes. And so what he'll do is sort of like, he'll make his controversial take up top. One of the ones that he did very well was Michelle Obama wrote a book. Why? Why would you write a book about not having a job? And so already you're like, what? And like, she's a very well-respected, well-loved person. Why? And then he goes on to make his supporting arguments. And so he hits 3 or 4 points. And by the end of it, hopefully you're like, he made some good points. That is actually pretty funny, and he's actually kind of convinced me. In law, the thing is to try to actually convince them of your argument. In comedy, you don't really have to convince them of their argument, but you have to make them laugh hard enough that they are with you.
So even if you're wrong,
yeah.
they're
So,
like getting your point of
yeah,
view.
if they love Michelle Obama, you have to be funny enough that they're like, he made some good points. That's actually pretty funny. And so it is. They are transferable skills, and there are a couple of stand-up comics, famous stand-up comics, who started as lawyers, and so it is a transferable thing. Yeah.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that.
That's
Greg
cool.
Giraldo was my favorite. He unfortunately died, but he went to Harvard Law, and then he became a stand-up comedian and a writer for The Daily Show,
Wow.
and like just such a funny guy.
What do you hope to accomplish in your life with all that you've done already?
What do I? Oh my gosh. This is a tough question. What do I hope to accomplish? I think ideally, I was talking to a friend about this recently. I would like to be artistically fulfilled. So, meaning that I think that I am doing work that I like, that I'm writing things that I like, that I'm doing stand-up comedy that I like, and that I'm acting in things that I really enjoy.
Are you doing that now?
A little bit, but not to the level of that I feel that I should be. I don't feel quite as committed to it as I should be. And maybe that's it. Is like I guess what I want to do is level up. And I want to get to the point where I am being sort of like I am recognized for stand-up comedy. And for acting to the point where I can do it as a job, like full-time job. And it is what I do right now, but what I really do is live off of my wife, who is a real estate agent. So she has been kind enough to allow me to do this. And so what I would like to do is to be able to make a meaningful financial contribution to my family, of course, while being artistically fulfilled. And that I don't have to be, I don't want to be famous. I just want to be able to like what I'm doing and make a living at it.
Yeah, do you think that it would be, because you were talking about how being a lawyer was kind of emptying your cup, about how being a comedian was filling your cup. So now, do you feel like you're still filling your cup with comedy?
I do, yeah. It's kind of funny because when I was practicing law full time, comedy was like a side thing. It was just kind of like, yeah, I'm pretty funny, and that's just something I do for fun.
But now you're really funny.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm freaking hilarious. Well, what it did for me, and this is maybe the anxious part of me, is like it put more pressure on me to be a better comedian, to be like, well, now I have all this time. I have no excuse not to be a better comedian. And I almost approach it like academically now. Now I'm watching like comedians that I like. I watch I love John Mulaney. I love Neil Brennan. And those guys partially because their voices, literal voices, sound kind of like mine. They sound kind of like a little nerdy, a little well-spoken. And so it's people like a Chris Rock who's bombastic and talks in this very specific way. You're like, oh, that guy, it's easy to see why he's funny. These guys who are just kind of talking, I'm like, why are you funny? And I like to watch comedians like that to find out how to be funny without going big as a character.
Or even faking it. It seems like everything. I did watch some of your comedy videos.
Oh, great.
And it really seems like, I thought they were hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
So I thought they were funny.
After you said that, I was like, and?
And he's like, am I funny?
Cool. What do you
He's like, so what do you think? No, I think you're super funny. And I think it's good. Don't take it too seriously, or else it's not gonna be fun anymore.
And that's exactly it. I think the comedians who I know, who I work with, who are the best at it, are ones who get up there and are just, it's similar to acting, being as relaxed as you can be. And so I have a friend, she's here in town, also does comedy in the Bay Area, Sarah Rooker. She is incredible at crowd work, at talking to an audience and finding laughs while you're talking to the audience. And that's because she can remain very calm while she's doing it. I'm getting better at it. I don't think that is my super strong skill, but it's a skill that you kind of have to have these days as a comedian. Especially that's what the algorithms like. Mm-hmm. They want crowd work videos. They want you talking to an audience. And also the people who are online want to, when you get something to land in crowd work, you look so clever. You look like
so clever.
Yeah, you
like
look
the
like
crystals in the phone video.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Thank you. Yes.
It was all about, some guy like cheating on this girl.
Yeah.
Like, well, I felt it. I felt that he was cheating on me, so I looked through his phone and confirmed it. And I was like, so you just looked through his phone and confirmed it?
Yeah.
Your punchline was hilarious.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's that kind of thing. And that night, for some reason, I remember that. And that night, I was just in the moment. I was with her, and I was just kind of like, I'm listening to you, and I'm giving back to you, which is sort of what you do in improv. And so, but the nights when I'm just not relaxed, where I feel frazzled, it's tough to do that. And so, so that's an ongoing battle for someone who's sort of a high anxiety person. Is like,
being on stage too.
Yeah, it's weird. I always say everything I like to do. I'm a very anxious person, but everything I like to do takes an audience. So like being in law, you're in a courtroom. Being a stand-up comedian, you're on stage. Being an actor, there's a camera in a room full of people watching you. And so it's tough to balance that sort of like, I want to convey something to this audience. And at the same time, I have to forget that they're even there. It's a weird balance.
Weird, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, I mean, no more were wondering, and it's really kind of just a funny thing to ask, but when you're on stage and you're, doing your comedy shows, what happens when nobody laughs? Like, how do you feel about that?
I'm glad you asked, because I'm an expert in that.
I've been dying to ask this question this whole time. I'm like, who's going to do it?
No, it's kind of funny. So I have not really bombed in a long time, because I've gotten kind of to the point where I can understand that. So I talked to a comedian one time who talked about how once you've been doing comedy long enough, it's like there's a cloud of jokes above your head. And if something isn't going well, you can look up and pluck a different one to get off of your set menu of jokes.
I never thought of that.
I'm getting better at that. I'm still not great at it. I don't have it's not really a cloud for me. It's like I don't know what it is. Whatever the thinnest cloud is. I don't know science. But I have bombed terribly, and it is an awful feeling. I went to the Nevada bar asked me to come down to Vegas and perform for some lawyers. I performed in a Mexican restaurant at like 4 p.m. to these lawyers who were just off of work, and it was just not the right, like, you need to have the right conditions for comedy. Usually it has to be dark, people have to be drinking a little bit, loosened up. It was just lawyers in a bar at like 4 p.m, and I bombed so horribly. And my brother lives in Las Vegas, and he was there. And even he, like, it couldn't be salvaged. We're walking out, and he's like, well, I've seen you be funny before, so I know you.
I know you got it in you.
Yeah. And so it is a real, it's just really embarrassing. It's very, very embarrassing, just like it was in law when you got caught off guard in court. It's embarrassing when you forget your lines. It's embarrassing to bomb in stand-up comedy. And it kind of, it's almost traumatizing. I remember walking out of there just being like, oh my God. And I felt it for like a week after. And you'll talk to other comics who do that. They're just like, I bombed so badly that like for 2 weeks I have felt terrible. But it is also a good thing about resilience, about just being like, well, I got to do the next show. The next show is the next night. I got to get back on it. And each show is a chance to do better than you did last time. And something that I've also picked up more recently is that you can comment on anything that's happening. And so if you are bombing, commenting on that is also funny. If the audience knows you're bombing, don't pretend like you're not. Just be like, a go-to joke I like is like, well, I'm bombing so bad that Al-Qaeda is going to recruit me after this. Or like something like that. And they're like, oh, okay, he knows he's bombing. He's in this with us. And sometimes you can like turn them to you because almost like a almost like a sympathy thing. Like,
Speaking of Bill Burr.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So he knows he's bombing, and we're here for you. And so if you can create that sense of community in the room,
Right.
if you can get them to be rooting for you, that helps.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes, but bombing sucks. To answer your question, it's awful, traumatizing, and I want to cry.
I'm
Okay.
so sorry. No, I mean, anytime anyone messes up, it's not fun. Like, it's
Yeah.
not a good time to be like, oh, I'm so bad at this.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
When you know you're not, too.
Yeah.
I'm a newscaster, you know, and
Yeah.
like sometimes, I mess up, and then I kick myself for like a week and a half, and I'm like, wow, I did so bad.
Yeah,
You know,
well,
in front of thousands of people, and it's not a good feeling.
but the funny thing is that, like, probably those thousands of people aren't even thinking about it
There.
a second
Yeah.
later. And so you're, like, killing yourself over it. You're like, oh my God, I suck at this, why am I doing it? And, like, they've already forgotten it. And
I think there's a healthy limit to being your worst critic.
yeah, for
I
sure.
found that. No.
Yeah, you have to have, like, self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
basically, but also you have to not beat up on yourself, and you have to not also have so much ego that you're like there. That's something you can't have in comedy, is that ultimately the audience is kind of the arbiter of what's funny.
Yeah, so you can't be like, oh, they fucking suck.
Yeah. And you figure that out. Sometimes I had a joke for a long time that my wife thought was not funny at all. And I just kept telling it because I was like, it is funny. I'm going to make it funny. I'm going to make it. And like the audience was kind of like, this is kind of funny. And so you do have to hit this point where you're like, well, they get to tell me ultimately what's funny. I have to know, but also if I'm not translating this idea to them clearly enough to make it funny, or maybe it's just not funny and I thought it was. And you have to be able to like swallow that and move on.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty funny.
Yeah.
You know how
You want to do stand-up?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I would never.
No, you should. Let's go to an open mic. You can bring that. Let's do this whole thing.
Like you said, I was going to do terrible. So
Do people at open mics come in with like little note cards and they go, so airplane food?
Yeah. So
Like
you're
pre-written notes?
Yeah, at an open mic, you're trying stuff out. And so you have to be a good stand-up comedian, you have to bomb. You have to go in and be like, these are some thoughts I think were funny, and you have to deliver them like they're funny.
I've heard a lot of people do this, you know, a lot of comics and
Yeah.
everything, they'll go in, like you just said, to like these random bars when they're
Yeah.
having comedy nights, and then they'll just like say random stuff and be like, okay, not that one?
Yeah.
Moving on?
Yeah, because you have to try it on an audience to know whether or not it is funny. There's a documentary from 2000 called, was it 2000? Maybe a little after 2000, called Comedian, starring Jerry Seinfeld. And it's when Jerry Seinfeld retired all of his old material, and then you're watching Jerry Seinfeld build a new act. And it was fascinating to watch Jerry Seinfeld bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at that point, probably the most famous comedian in the world. And he's in this bar, like, is this funny? Oh, I messed up that punchline. And, like, you have people heckling him and being like, get off the stage, Jerry! And, like, it's a tough go. It's a tough gig. And so I always tell people, I think that I am the kind of person that if I did make it in acting, I would probably quit stand-up comedy. Because stand-up is such a slog. Like, you have to be on the stage all the time. If you can, you have to be traveling. So you're on the road. I know a comic who's on the road 50 weeks a year. You have to write new material all the time. Like musicians, you get to play the same songs over and over. And people will accept that. Not that it's what you want to do necessarily, but people will accept that. People hear a joke once and they're like, what else do you have? I never want to hear that joke again. And you're just like, it took me 3 weeks to write that joke. I don't know. And so it's quite a slog to do stand-up comedy well. And I think probably some people, just like anything else, are fairly naturally funny. They're like, growing up, I watched Sinbad. Sinbad has ADHD. And he talked about how his brain works in that he can just zigzag from topic to topic. And so he would go up, not having written anything, no notes, and just start talking to the audience. And whatever they gave him, his brain would like, and my brain does not work that way. So I'm envious of that. That's a gift.
That's all good. You do other great things anyway.
Thank you.
You know he was on an Amazon national commercial?
That is true.
It was going to air on the Super Bowl, and then they were like, nah.
Yeah. It did not happen. But it was a good experience.
I saw you said there was a tiny guy.
But it was fine. So I did an Amazon ad. I did Healthy Hank, which is
Yes, I saw a very tiny. So he was staging himself as this very small person next to Clorox wipes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It is a Nevada Department of Health and Human Services campaign that is about sanitizing and keeping things clean. Initially, the character was called Sergeant Sanitary, and he was this military guy.
I auditioned for that.
Did you?
I didn't know it was the same
Oh my
thing.
God.
So I auditioned for Sergeant Sanitary, then they changed it to Captain Sanitary, and then they didn't like the word sanitary, and so eventually it became Healthy Hank. And so, yeah, I'm wearing this ridiculous superhero outfit that's most similar to like Doug as Quailman. I don't know if you remember that, but it's just like a ridiculous outfit.
Reminds me of the ones from Kick-Ass, that movie.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of.
Yes, and then the character ultimately is this tiny guy who shows up at places and says, "Make sure you sanitize" and things like that. But we shot them in public, so we shot one at a gas station right across the street from the office of a lawyer I used to work with, and he was like walking out, and he's like,
Didn't I go to class?
"David, what's up?" Like,
So that's
in
what you've been up to.
Yeah, in my Healthy Hank, I'm like, life's going great. We shot one in the airport. It was, and just people walking through to find their flights. There was an Australian flight crew who was like, what, I can't do it. What are you shooting, mate? And they took a picture with me, and then they went back to Australia. We're like, look at this. I don't know. My picture's out there in
That
Australia.
exists somewhere.
Yeah, but it was an interesting
big in
thing.
Australia.
Yeah, I'm huge in Australia. Healthy Hank, really huge there. But yeah, I think that is the thing that most people have seen me in. Like, I get text all the time that like, I just saw Healthy Hank, or I'll get like a screenshot of like a TV, like, look, you're on.
You
Or
made it.
I did like a radio ad. I did 3 radio spots for it as well, so my voice will just pop up on radio. So that outfit is so embarrassing that I can never go back to law now. So
Even if you wanted to.
yeah, they're not going to have me at this
It's
point.
okay, we're gonna crack it as a comedian.
That's right. It's gonna all work out.
Healthy Hank all the time.
That's true, actually. Yeah, I do need to get more of that sort of stuff into my act, more personal stuff, more about
Yes.
being an actor, more about what it was like to be a lawyer. I have a
It's
little
hard
bit
to
of
open
that.
up on your personal life for sure.
It is, yeah. It's easier to put some distance between and be like, well, this is funny, but it's not really about me, or it's a little bit about me.
I
But
think it's funnier if you can like relate too.
yeah.
Because then you can go deeper and you don't have to think about what you're saying because you know it's funny.
Exactly. Yeah. When you're telling your own story.
I'm sure I don't need to tell you that.
No, you're killing it. I think you should do comedy actually. But no, that's absolutely true. Is that if it is your truth, it is easier to be funny about it. And really, ideally, sort of the more embarrassing it is, the better it is to make it into a stand-up comedy joke, or the sadder that it is. It works better as comedy in that case. And so that is a real thing. It's like sort of the vulnerability that you have to bring to it. But like you said, I had a guy, Justin Ruppel, great stand-up comedian, great impressionist. Mm-hmm. He said the absolute best jokes are the ones where the audience is going, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I get that. And once they're relating, you've got them. So
Damn.
yeah,
Nice.
it's true.
Anything else you want to ask me before we get going?
I was like, I could talk to you for hours. Seriously, I really could.
Yes. What is it like to fail in law school?
I wasn't gonna. Well,
fail at law
listen, if you want to go there, we can.
I never want to go there again.
No, I think that you've lived 8 lives, maybe more, and I think it's just.
In the past 4 years.
Yeah, it definitely kind of feels like it.
Yes,
So.
it's really cool to be malleable in life because, I mean, you can always pick up new hobbies. I just picked up pageantry last year,
Mm-hmm.
and we're picking up more things.
That's awesome.
We're doing this now.
Yeah,
I just think
yeah.
it's, I'm just.
Miss Nevada, USA.
It is
Oh,
not,
really?
not.
Miss Reno.
Miss Reno,
Third
USA.
runner-up. Third runner-up.
That's
For
incredible.
2025 too, it'd be great.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Third runner
Well
up.
done. I
Yeah,
mean,
very cool.
you got to start somewhere. Though.
Well, it
That's
was
sort of the
something
thing
that I
that's
tried
huge.
out, It's
Yeah.
like we always have to be malleable, If
Yeah.
you feel like you're kind of stuck, it's really nice to find something else to do.
That's a huge thing. I feel like I'm getting better at sort of being flexible about things, but yeah, the idea that you are not one thing, that you can do a ton of things, that you can reinvent yourself, all of that is a mindset that I would like to subscribe to. I'm not sure I do yet, but I'm working on it. So yeah.
Well, you're
for
one
sure.
of the most talented people I've ever met. One of the most,
Stop.
definitely one of the
Gosh.
funniest comedians I've seen
Cut it
live.
out.
No, I'm serious. I haven't seen that
Oh, the
many
hype
live,
stuff.
so you're definitely one of them. But seriously, you're a really good actor, and it surprised me you do so much stand-up because you're really good at acting. And,
Thank you.
So I can see you
He's
moving
acting like
towards
a
that.
comedian.
Exactly.
Yeah, but,
that is kind of the thing, yeah. Well, and there's crossover. Is that there are when you act out something in stand-up comedy, it's called an act out, and I think that a lot of actors who are also stand-up comedians, you can really see it in their work. When I watch Kevin Hart, his comedy involves a lot of acting. He's very good at pretending he's doing something, grabbing something. One time he hit a microphone stand and it was like supposed to be a kid he was knocking over. And it was just like bringing that sort of thing it really works as well.
He's a funny guy.
Let me make sure the camera didn't turn off.
I know, I was about to say, I heard it beep too.
Oh,
Let
well.
me turn it back on. Oh, it says, yeah, so that one's dead.
It's dead?
Like I ran out of space.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
So
I
we'll
didn't
just,
see
we'll
that.
close it with close-ups.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
we can do that. I'm
Cool.
so sorry.
I should have brought mine.
It's
Oh
okay.
my gosh. We must have been talking longer than I thought we were.
30 minutes and 38 seconds
And
to be
you
honest.
are such a good
Nailed
tripod.
it.
You're doing so good. Like,
Thanks,
Well
BJ.
done.
Yes.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, to close it out, since one of our cameras died, we're not going to talk about it. But to close it out, of course, we're just happy that you let us pick your brain a little bit so we can, I mean, interesting people have interesting stories, and you are definitely an interesting person.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for having me. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
David?
Wonderful.
No, thank you.
You had done funnier stuff.
Not your best work.
All right, goodbye, everyone.